Recording in progress.
Okay. Good evening. This is the August edition of the Chicago Computer Society's Linux SIG meeting. I'm going to open up the floor to any questions, problems, etc., etc. Dennis, had you waited, we could have had what you just went through in the video, but you were already halfway through it by the time I could have started the meeting.
Well, I still have a questions on it.
No,
So
I'm not. You've already taken up an hour of time. We got other things to do.
You made me on time for the meeting.
Why?
there you go.
Not
There you go,
with
Pete.
him. Now, one of the things I do want to bring up because of I do help some other people with their stuff, and sometimes they come up with a common problem. And one of the things that is a common occurrence is not understanding all computers constantly are creating temporary files, and every time it updates, it obsoletes other pieces of software that were being used. And that includes kernels. Mostly in Linux you see it, but it happens in macOS and in Windows also. So bottom line is you have to have some tools in order to be able to do a housekeeping. And it should be done at least once a month after you do a main update. So you go to the software manager. Oh, I got the wrong mouse. This is the problem with multiple computers. Let me get this up. Come on. Okay. Now up at the top here is the search field. Put in bleach bit, one word, and I use this one here with the flat hub, and download that. It gives me a major cleanup tool. You definitely want to use bleach bit on the root partition. You can also use it on the home partition, but you won't get but a small fraction of garbage found in the home directory. Not to say that there is none, but generally speaking, you may get up to a couple gigabytes of space back on root, and not even see 500 megabytes on home directory, because you're not making as many temporary files there, and you don't have the main body of the executable programs in home. They're in the root. That's why there's such a difference between the two. Now, the other one that I believe in also that seems to be pretty good, and this is more for the home directory. Stacer, S-T-A-C-E-R. And this one here looks like this when you first launch it. And I'm going to go ahead and say launch. And that's running live right now. It gives you some desktop gauges, how things are going. One of the main things are the rocket here for a boost. There are some things here. Now, Mint Welcome is red, meaning it's off for startup apps. I don't want it on. The very first time you install and bring up Mint, it's going to be there. You do the various recommended things in the list, and then after that, you remove the check mark down at the bottom right, and then say close the window. SSH key agent. I'm not using it right now, so it can be off. If I want to remote into other computers, I would turn this on. So the only thing I have is Redshift. Redshift is in Mint. It is not in KDE Neon, which one person here is using. You would have to go into the discovery of KDE Neon and look for Redshift, and you might be able to add it to yours. What this does, it changes the color of your screen display to reduce blue light as the evening continues on, so that you're not disturbed in your sleep by blue light from your computer screen. The third one here is got a little whisper. Gee, I wonder what that's for. Click select all, click the magnifying glass, and it says out of 5 categories, I've got a little bit of trash in 3 out of the 5, nearing maybe up to a gigabyte of garbage in basically the home directory. The bad part is that some of the files that it's reporting are also open right now. You cannot have any cleanup utility remove an open file. The next time you reboot the computer, those files will close. And if you ran Stacer or BleachBit on the home directory, you would find that the stuff that was open is now closed and available to be removed. So
Can you also bring
my
mug with ice and water?
Whoa.
It's on the stove.
Who's talking?
Sorry. I will mute.
Off to the left side here is another select all. And then, but I can, if I want to, just click the little round dot here for the 3 areas. But with that many, 3 out of 5, just select them all and then hit the broom again. You have to provide a password for your system because you're changing some of the system parameters. All done. Now I'm going to bring up BleachBit to show that one. Now, see, BleachBit, I have a plain BleachBit and a BleachBit as root. The root one is the one that's most important, but you can run BleachBit on the home directory. That's what this is, because you're always in the standard account until you have to put in your administrative password. So I'm going to click here on BleachBit as root. I got to put in my password. And basically speaking, most everything in the left column here gets a check mark. I have a total of 4 that I don't do. I don't use the Vim file editor, so I uncheck those 2. And I don't do custom or free disk space. Free disk space, says that after it gets done with the regular cleanup, it's going to go through all the free space and make sure nothing's recoverable. Well, that takes quite a while to do, so I don't do it. And custom is for going into special file areas to be able to say, I also want you to clean up stuff in this particular folder. And so right now, this has got everything checked off. Now, in the standard user account, BleachBit, I have the same things checked off except this top APT. It only applies to root, so that won't be there. But one thing that will show up in the standard user is your browsers. And this is a characteristic that's different person to person. I always have lots of open tabs because I'm a researcher and I use that. I don't like bookmarks. So I leave that open. So I uncheck session or session manager for each of the browsers. For that's the only thing that I additionally uncheck. That way, whatever I bring up the browser, it brings up the browser with all the tabs that were left open when I closed the browser or did a restart with it open. And so that gives me the ability to pick up right where I left off. Lots of users don't like that feature because they're not researchers. So they usually don't have it set so that the browser keeps the open tabs and always end up with kind of a blank browser session. The one exception is in most browsers, if you pin tabs, those will reappear when you open up the browser. So all I have to do here on BleachBit is, besides losing my mind because I'm watching the wrong screen, click on preview and it goes through and it says right now I've got a measly 315 megabytes. It could be more than that, it could be less than that because of the APT for the root. So this number can change. I click clean, click on delete, and down in the bottom left corner, it will eventually start showing you how much it has been deleting, and it's constantly increasing until it's all done. See, I only had 315 reported. We're not done yet. It's still running, and it found a total of 1.6 gigabytes. Why? Because most of it is up here in the APT, which is your operating system software that became obsolete, along with some kernels maybe, also sometimes log files that are real old, temporary files that the operating system makes. These are all things that are no longer of any value to anybody as long as your system is running. If you just did an update, don't do the BleachBit on root right away. Wait a day or two before doing the BleachBit on the root, because if you do experience a problem and you got to go into either the your recovery options under grub 2 menu at the beginning, then it may reactivate some of what looks like junk right now and uses that under the former operating system kernel. And it is something that happens once in a great while. I haven't had this happen too often, I'm glad to say. And all I got to do is close out now BleachBit. So this is another very, very important tool. These are two tools you really want. Another tool some of you may want and need, it's in Software Manager in Mint and ought to be in KDE Neon's Discover, Catfish. Catfish is a search utility to help you find where you have a file. Because a lot of people, they're so busy focusing on what they're trying to get done on the computer, they don't look to see where is the computer saving some of my software and or files that I'm creating or modifying. So Catfish is a search feed. So that's another one that you might want to think about. Now, another thing that I'm going to bring up here shortly.
Pam,
Yes.
I'm really amazed at the amount of memory that you can recover when you use BleachBit and all of that. I wonder if you would comment on what I thought was sufficient in that regard, which is in the APT package manager and in the one for Neon called PKCon, they have an option -- auto remove, which is supposed to delete unused packages.
Right. This is what I'm getting at. Every time you update any operating system, I don't care what it is, it's superfluous because BleachBit works on Windows too. I think it'll work on a Mac. But anyway, aside from that, you are always obsoleting stuff that was there running with new stuff, but the OSs never do a complete cleanup. In fact, most of the time they do little to nothing on cleaning up stuff. And part of this is the ability to recover when the update causes a problem. They can roll it back and then you can continue on, and maybe a week later you try an update again and see if maybe they found the problem, corrected it, and it's no longer a problem. Wait another couple days, do the BleachBit, and it'll clean out all the dead wood in your root directory. And if you do it on the standard account, which is your home directory, it'll do kind of the same thing, but there's only a small fraction of the junk left in that area because it doesn't create as many temporary files that are the equivalent of a human using what's called a scratch pad to jot down notes and other pieces of information to use at a later time. Well, in a sense, computers have been doing scratch pads all their existence, except maybe back in the 50s.
Yeah, and so I must say, auto remove doesn't do nearly as much as can be done, that's for sure.
Well, there are multiple commands under auto that can be done manually that can be used, but you better know what you're doing with those auto commands because sometimes that can cause a problem. Robert?
What I have found is there's a term residual configurations, and it usually applies to things left over after you upgrade a kernel. Some of the old kernels will have configuration package items. I have found that BleachBit doesn't always clear all of these out. So once in a while, I go into the actual Synaptic Package Manager for Mint, and it has under status, it has a line item that says residual package configurations, and I'll go into that and I'll find about 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, there is no package that's absolute. The developers of the software are constantly trying to strive and improve things. If you were in the Windows world and you use CCleaner, it is once to twice a month updating the package and always making incremental improvements so that it keeps finding more and more stuff to get rid of, more and more features to do additional cleanup in areas that CCleaner never did. So nothing is dead static. If it's dead static, it's just plain dead, meaning it was created and nobody is going to make any changes to it ever, no matter how long time exists. So with that, you have to understand you may be needing to take and do a cleanup probably only about once a month, unless you're making lots of changes. If you're making lots of changes, I would consider twice a month, like about every 2 weeks. But otherwise, once a month generally seems to be enough, unless I'm running out of space. Now, I have Linux Mint on some 32 gigabyte drives. That's a tight squeeze. And sometimes I have to make adjustments to partition sizes, and I am usually running out of space. So I have to do something like a bleach bit root even before I do the update and get as much garbage cleared out. Then I do the update. And the reason for this is because of real tight space. But you can fit a pretty good running system in 32 gigabytes. 64 is much better. 128 seems to be pretty optimum for Linux bases, unless you're a person that has lots of music libraries, photos, video files, and databases, or you do virtualization. And if you do virtualization, you should have a separate partition designated as /var, because that's where virtualization machines are stored. Earl?
Just to change the subject slightly, you mentioned these nighttime monitor settings, and I'd like to remind our audience that here in KDE Neon, in the system settings, there go to display and monitor, and there is this nighttime setting, which I have implemented here. Says it's a blue light filter, which makes colors on the screen warmer, and I do notice it's more pinkish because
That's right.
I guess blocks the blues.
That's its function. But if you've been on Windows, Windows has had that feature for years.
And I don't know how long it's been here either, but it's here now.
It may be built into some Linux distributions, but not all. And in some of those that don't have that built in as an option, they may have already loaded in their system Redshift, but they have to set it up. In other words, run it once and it'll keep going. The other is if you don't have it in your distribution, then you can go to the software store that's for that distribution and usually find it or something like it doing the same kind of function.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this nightlight system setting thing, and you can set the daylight temperature from cool to warm, and the nighttime temperature from cool to warm. It even has the degree Kelvin, I guess it's filtering on.
Yes.
And then switching time, sunset and sunrise at manual location is what I've chosen from a drop-down box, drop-down menu.
Right.
And then the world map shows the arrow on Chicago,
Right.
and then it tells me my latitude and longitude. So it's really pretty amazing.
I use in Windows something called Flux, F period LUX. Also on some other systems, I used G period LUX. They do the same thing. You put in your zip code where you're at, and it'll just the times for sunset and sunrise, and adjust your display temperature. That's what it's referred to as, and allow you to not be disturbed in your sleep at night. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else to say on some of these kind of things? I've got one other announcement. For those who are not aware of it, Linux Mint version 22 has been released. It's out there. It's been out there roughly a month now, but I have not upgraded to it yet. Partly because right now you have to download the ISO image, flash it to a flash drive, and then go through an update off the flash drive, which I don't want to do. Mint normally will come out with a utility, and the utility is called Systems Report. The first top category, when that tool is available, will tell you that 22 is available to update on your system. It's been working flawlessly from version 20 to 21, and that's what I'm waiting for offhand. However, there are people, I don't care what OS they're running on their systems, that includes Windows, believe that one should always do for a major release of an operating system, which 21 to 22 is, do a clean install after you backed up all your data, know all your programs. You would do a clean install, reinstall all your program apps first, and then put all your data back where it was so that you can find it again and continue on with life from there. So right now, that's a personal choice. If you're itching for 22, that's fine. You have to know how to do an upgrade in place. If you don't know how to do it, wait for the utility to come out. And usually it comes out within 2 weeks of the release of the major update. But this is already 4 weeks and it's not there yet. But I'll show you what I'm basically talking about. You come here to the search bar on the start menu, go system, port. I didn't even have to finish it. There it is. I click it. Right now it says there are no problems, and the update that will do an automatic in-place upgrade is not there right now. Exactly when it's going to come out, I can't tell you. It, from past history, it normally would have been out, but it seems like the Mint group is taking on more and more things that you're going to find out from tonight's meeting. So, unless there's something else, I'm going to get into the presentation. And I've added at least 2 or 3 things to what I'm going to be doing. And worried about that. All right. Now, this is, whoops. Ooh, I missed one. I'm gonna change this. Hang on a minute. I missed putting in one of the links. I want to do this one first. This is a, there's 2 of these or 3 of these, and bottom line, it gives you...
Mint 22's beta phase is coming to an end, and since they don't give any heads up for when they release a stable version, I'm making a guess and I'm assuming it will be out by the time I'm publishing this video. If I don't have a fixed release date, I have to take a guess, so when you watch this, either Mint 22 is not released.
I'm going to go back just a bit here. There's a reason for me doing it. Come on, you little squirt. Boy.
A guess.
Right there. For those of you running Mint, every now and then when you click on the shield for updates, it's going to come up with this. And this is saying that the piece of software that does the comparison of the software cache has to be updated so that it knows how to take new stuff that's in the cache and apply it to your system to get the right updates. So all you have to do here is click on apply the updates. It'll put in the new piece of update manager, and then it will start analyzing and give you your list of known updates that are available. So I just wanted to point that out.
Wait, question.
Not allowed.
On that,
Not allowed. Not allowed. Go ahead.
on that screen right there, do you see up at the top where it says, do you want to switch to a local account? Yes or no. So you're saying in this case, you would just go down to the bottom and hit apply the update because it already knows that you have
Not necessarily.
selected.
This is a different little piece of software. This is a single piece of software that is in control of your updating process. It is not the updates.
Okay.
Now, on this one here, I don't remember if I did it or not. Oh, wait a minute.
And I'm...
do this. Never mind. I can't do this here because this is a video.
I'm assuming it will be out by the time I'm publishing this video. If I don't have a fixed release date, I have to take a guess. So when you watch this, either Mint 22 is not released yet, but it should release like at most in a week, or it is already out. At any rate, it was ready enough for me to actually take a real good look at what it brings, and it is a fantastic release. I just have one little concern on how much workload the Mint team is shouldering, and I also just have this one segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by... Hey everyone, this is Nick. I am back from my vacation, and so here is your next installment of the Linux and open source news. So this week we've got GNOME announcing that yes, you will get accent color support, and yes, it will plug in with every other desktop that supports this property, and that's for GNOME 47. We also have Mozilla buying an ad analytics business, and it's quite unclear for now what they aim to do with this. And we also have Google moving forward with the Manifest v3 version of their browser extension API, which is a terrible thing for most people, at least people who use Chrome. And also we have this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, and most of you probably already know about it.
Behind the technology that consumers know and experience lies one simple question. How does it work? From sophisticated software that gets us from point A to point B, to algorithms that suggest a specific song alone.
Wait a minute. This thing jumped into a different one. And I'm going to have to get out of that to back this thing up.
Hey everyone, this is Nick. I am back from my vacation, and so here is your next installment of the Linux and open source news. So this week we've got GNOME announcing that yes, you will get accent color support, and yes, it will plug in with every other desktop that supports this property, and that's for GNOME 47. We also have Mozilla buying an ad analytics business, and it's quite unclear for now what they aim to do with this. And we also have Google moving forward with the Manifest v3 version of their browser extension API, which is a terrible thing for most people, at least people who use Chrome. And also we have this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Square. To get started, just click the link in the description below or head over to squarespace.com/thelinuxexperiment and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. So, good stuff is coming to GNOME 47. First, accent color support has now been merged, using the accent color property of the desktop portals, just like Plasma, Elementary OS, and other desktops. In the Appearance tab of GNOME settings, you will be able to set an accent color, which will apply to the GNOME shell and to libadwaita apps as well. So technically, you could run KDE and use GNOME apps, and they would at least follow your accent color. Or you could run GNOME and use KDE apps, and they would use the right color as well, which is pretty nice. On top of that, GNOME also merged support for the DRM lease protocol on Wayland, meaning VR headsets should also work properly on GNOME now, as the rendering manager can now give Wayland clients, like a VR headset, the ability to render things directly. Other GNOME-related changes include the image viewer gaining some capabilities for image editing, like rotating them, and there's more work on the global keyboard shortcuts portal that will also help with accessibility, notably with screen readers. And Orca, the screen reader in question, also got some love, while a new protocol called Newton was developed to handle all accessibility-related features on Linux. Not specifically just for GNOME, but for every desktop that wants to implement it. Work on making Nautilus the file chooser for GNOME is also progressing nicely. So that's some pretty good stuff. GNOME 47 will definitely be a bigger release than GNOME 46 was, although I am not sure if everything I mentioned previously will land in 47 or if we'll have to wait for 48 to enjoy all of that. Google is finally pulling the trigger on Manifest v3, the revision of the browser extensions API that will severely limit what extensions can do, notably ad blockers and tracker blockers. The main contention point is that ad blockers need to implement a lot of rules to block traffic from various ad servers, and Manifest v3 prevents them from implementing nearly enough of those rules. uBlock Origin needs about 300,000, and Manifest v3 only allows 30,000 of these. Extensions also won't be able to modify browser requests as much as they did, meaning that tracker blockers will be much less efficient to remove data and to anonymize requests made to various websites and tracking tools. It is obviously a really bad move for privacy and for user agency on their own computers, and most browsers already said that they would not force users and extension developers to conform with Manifest v3. Apart from Chrome, most other browser developers will still support Manifest v2, but Chrome users will definitely have an even less private experience. To be fair, if you wanted privacy, you were not using Chrome anyway, because it is a data-grabbing machine and it's just not private in the slightest. Hopefully, some people who didn't really mind about privacy but were using an ad blocker will notice that their experience has gotten worse on Chrome and will move to something else. Mozilla just acquired Anonym, a company working on ad targeting and analytics. They apparently focus on privacy-preserving tracking using encryption to make sure that the data stays safe and presumably anonymous, but still allows for targeted ads. Basically, Anonym employees don't get access to the data from users who will be targeted, nor do advertisers and publishers. All analytics are anonymized and they have algorithms to add noise to the data for each individual, so you can't trace the data back to a single person. The difference with most ad platforms is that the entire data set doesn't need to be shared with the ad platform itself. You can just share the anonymized bits that are relevant for measurement. Anonym was founded by former Meta executives, though, and it is backed by venture capital firms, and now Mozilla owns it. The announcement from Mozilla is vague as to what they expect to do with this, but it is an ad-focused business, so if they don't want to waste money here, it means they will get into the ad business at some point. Which, well, I am not a fan of at all. And I know it's ironic I make a living on ads because I make videos on YouTube, but Mozilla is seemingly rebranding itself as everything privacy related, except a lot of their stuff is just not up to snuff compared to the competition. Firefox is starting to really lag behind, and I would have loved to see this monetary investment being invested in, I don't know, making their products better and regain market share. But also, in the long run, maybe running Anonym as an ad analytic and ad targeting platform will generate more money that they can reinvest in those products. So who knows, maybe it's a positive. I'm just not a big fan of the idea of Mozilla getting involved with ads.
Now I'm going to pause here because I got quite a bit of content. You'll get a list of in the handout that you can run this. I'm going to get out of that one, and now I'll go into this one. This one gives you more information about 22.
Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time we're going to look at Linux Mint 22, which has just been released. As I've indicated in the title of this video, Linux Mint is an excellent choice for Windows users. And by this I don't mean that Linux Mint is the same as Windows, nor that it runs Windows software. But if you're a Windows user who's never used Linux, then Linux Mint is a great place to start. So let's go and take a closer look at Linux Mint 22. Well, it's now July the 25th, 2024, and here on the Linux Mint website, Linux Mint 22 has just been released. As we can see, it's codenamed Wilma, and it's an LTS or long-term support release with security updates until 2029. The system requirements are for a 64-bit CPU, along with a minimum of 2 GB of RAM, although 4 GB is recommended. And so, in practice, Linux Mint 22 will run on pretty much any computer made in the last 10 years or so, and it should perform better on less powerful hardware than Windows 10 or Windows 11. To obtain a free copy, we just have to go to Download, where we can click on Linux Mint 22 Recommended, very exciting, and we discover on this page there are 3 editions, the Cinnamon Edition, the XFCE Edition, and the Mate Edition, all of which have different desktops. And here, the most popular is the Cinnamon Edition, which is the one we'll mainly focus on in this video. So, let's click on Download, and if we go down this page, we find there are loads and loads of mirror sites that actually provide access to the ISO file. I'm in the UK, so I'm going all the way down to UK, there we are, and I'm going to download from the University of Kent Mirror Service. And so I'll click to save the ISO file, which is 2.7 GB in size. And there we are, our download is complete, very exciting. And here in Windows, I've inserted a USB drive, which has to be at least 4 GB in size, and we're going to run up Balena Etcher, which is free to download from etcher.balena.io. And here we'll select the ISO file we just downloaded. There it is. And we'll check we've selected the right USB drive. There's only one plugged in, has to be the right drive. And we'll click on Flash, which will delete everything from the USB drive. And Windows will just check we want to do it. Yes, we do. And Etcher will now image a live USB drive that we can use to test and install Linux Mint 22. Right, we're now booting my i5 test rig from the live USB drive we just created, and if you need help booting from a USB drive, I've left some information in the video description. But here we now are at a grub menu that allows us to launch Linux Mint 22, where we'll just press enter to select the first option, and then use the magic of filmmaking to speed forward in time. And here we are now arriving for the first time in Linux Mint 22, which is running from the USB drive. So if we just want to test it out, we can do so without installing anything on the computer. But here I do want to do an install, so we'll click on the Install Linux Mint icon to launch the installer, where first we need to confirm our language by pressing Continue, and then we confirm our keyboard layout, which for me is English UK. Next, there's an option to install multimedia codecs, third-party codecs, to allow us to play lots of different media files, so we'll do that and continue, which then brings us to this screen on installation type. And here the main option is to erase disk and install Linux Mint, because there's currently no operating system on my test rig. But if we were working on a computer with Windows installed, this screen would look something like this, with the default option being to install Linux Mint alongside Windows Boot Manager, which would create a dual boot. And I've got a whole...
and I'm pausing it there for a moment to say that I don't believe in putting it alongside in the boot manager. It causes some problems every time you update Windows, and then you got to figure out how to recover your Linux distro so it also runs. They also are doing what I call the glob install, meaning there's only one real partition, your root and your home directory, and all other directories are in one partition. And for a beginner, it's okay, but you really want to end up doing the partitioning to at least have root and home directories, possibly a swap directory. You can also have, on a lot of systems, a UEFI partition if you want. So I'm going to continue on.
Video about dual boot options, which I'll link to in the video description. And here, if we wanted to, we could select erase disk and install Linux Mint, exactly the same way we can here now on my test rig. So I'm going to click on Install Now, and then on Continue to confirm the changes. And then we just have a few more questions. I confirm my time zone, and then we have to create an account. And to be clear, this is just a local account on this computer. And there we are, that's it. Linux Mint 22 is now being installed. The installer is nice and friendly. It hasn't changed from the previous version of Linux Mint, at least not in terms of user interface, although there is an optimization, because at the end of the install, the files required for languages other than English and any other that's been selected will be deleted to save drive space. And there we are, the installation has completed. So we just need to restart now, and then remove our installation media and press enter. And the system will now reboot. And once again, we're arriving in Linux Mint, this time installed on the computer. So I'll just log in. And here we are back on my desktop with a welcome wizard. And there's various things that can be done here, some of which I'll return to later in the video. But the critical one is that if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, and on this computer there is an NVIDIA graphics card, we need to launch the driver manager to install the right drivers for the NVIDIA graphics card. And just to be clear, if you have Intel or AMD graphics, the best drivers will already be installed. But here for NVIDIA, we'll just click on Launch to launch the driver manager, where, as we can see right now, an open source driver is being used rather than a proprietary NVIDIA driver. So we'll go to the recommended NVIDIA driver, click on that, and click on Apply Changes. And because this is Linux, I have to enter my password to authenticate the software install. There we go, and hardly surprisingly, we now need to reboot. And here we are back again. where we have successfully installed Linux Mint 22, including the optimal graphics driver for a system with an NVIDIA GPU. Greetings, here I am back again for a look around, and the first thing to note is that Linux Mint 22 has no fundamental interface changes. It's certainly not like going from Windows 10 to Windows 11, which was a bit of a shock. Rather, we still by default have a panel a bit like the taskbar in Windows at the bottom of a screen with notifications and icons over here, and we also have a bottom left menu with all of the applications organised into these categories. And so existing Linux Mint users will have no learning curve moving to Linux Mint 22, and Windows users should also find it easy to use. In terms of
Okay, I'm going to stop that one, and you can watch the rest of it if you're interested. Next up. Oh, now that shows up. It was out of sequence. No.
Okay, so I'm Matt's Creative. Okay, if you're new to this whole Linux thing, if you're new to my space, if you're watching this video for the first time, I just ended up moving permanently to Windows. No, not to Windows, to Linux. My God, I'm not good at this, see? And in doing so, everything is about to change for me. And it's mainly because NVIDIA got Wayland to work perfectly on Linux. So there's no point in AMD anymore. I'm kidding. It has its own reasons to exist, joking aside. I want to
if you missed it, if you have an NVIDIA card in your computer, graphics processing unit, then having the NVIDIA drivers will supposedly flawlessly work with Wayland. And that has not been true. And from the sounds of it, it may be another year or two before Wayland is really got most of the bugs worked out of it and takes over totally from X11.
explain why I moved to Linux primarily. And we're going to start there. Now, lately, Microsoft introduced something called recall. Okay, so Windows 11 recall. I'm gonna show you here real quick. So it's Microsoft's Windows 11 AI or recall feature. Now, they said you need an NPU to be able to run it. That was proven to be false. What recall does in a nutshell is it records you. Okay, it records everything you do. It takes pictures of your actions and other things. It keeps track to help you remember what you did. I'm gonna try to get into this as much as I can. So let's take a look at this video. This is recall in a preview, and this guy doesn't have an NPU, and there you go. So it basically keeps you in its history, and you're able.
Now I'm pausing it there because I know recall was withdrawn by Microsoft to make alterations in it, but I have just yesterday seen an article that says recall is back in business. However, it's supposed to be off, and you have to opt in or turn it on yourself. If you choose not to turn it on, theoretically, this cannot be happening. But apparently in the beta software, and maybe those who got an earlier release of 24H2, it was running. And so now they've reworked it so that recall supposedly will not run unless you turn it on. So I'm just button in on that there to get you up to date.
To copy things from images and to be able to paste them. I get what it's trying to do, but I don't like the fact that it's doing it. Windows, in a nutshell, is becoming completely toxic, and I don't like it. Not only that, but it's becoming bloated, more so than normal. It's becoming slower. I've started to notice this over the last couple of months. It's becoming, I can't say it's becoming buggier, because it wasn't. It was actually getting less buggy. All right, less forceful. It was starting to learn about what people wanted. It was kind of interesting. And I love the Windows aesthetic. I love how easy it is. You just jump in, you learn, you're good to go, right? It doesn't take very long. It takes like 10 minutes. Hey, I need this program. Download it, install it, and so on. But they're moving in direction that even I don't like. And that's something that I can't do anymore. So when explicit sync came into mind about a couple years ago, I've been watching this for a couple of years now, and I'm like, this is going to fix Wayland. And it did. Explicit sync with the 555 drivers. We're going to do it this way, by the way, because I like using the terminal in videos. It scares people. So the 555.42.02 drivers pretty much handed us a perfect Wayland experience. A perfect Wayland experience. Think about that. You don't need an AMD card for Linux no more. If you don't want to have one, you could use NVIDIA, have a great gaming experience, have a great content creation experience, DLSS, hopefully frame generation pretty soon, because a lot of people want that. I don't, but I know a ton of people too. So, yeah. My experiences with Windows has been up and down and up and down and up and down, and I'm tired of the roller coaster. I want something that is stable, that is consistent, that works. That is Linux. You know, to be completely honest, it's, you know, Fedora Linux. It does,
Now I'm going to stop it there because this thing is about 28 minutes long, and we burned a fair amount of time at the beginning. So I'm trying to get through a certain amount of this stuff. Now, this is just an article, no video. Do you need to be a computer whiz to use Linux? 4 misconceptions debunked. Okay. Misconception 1, you have to be a nerd to use Linux. This might have to do with the fact that so many computer professionals rely on Linux. It's a choice of IT administrators, programmers, and scientific researchers. Linux success is technical, in technical fields, may make it seem that it's not for ordinary users, but Linux is all around you. You just might not be aware that you are using it, such as Android operating system, Chrome OS Flex. There's a lot of cars that are controlled and have information panels on them that are using the Linux kernel. So, and appliances now. It's hard to go into a store now and not see smart appliances, washers, dryers, stoves, refrigerators. They're all running Linux, guarantee it. So that's number one. Number two, doesn't run Windows programs. One major barrier to Linux adoption is that many people, for better or worse, depend on programs that only run on Windows and don't have a native Linux version. If you're one of those people, though, there are some ways around the problem. And Wine is the foundation. Some improve upon default Wine to make it an even better experience. I've seen this in some distros. So most people, when they're in a Windows environment and they are relying upon a program, they expect to have the same program name in a Linux environment, and that's usually not the case. Usually you have, I'll say, a rough clone of that under a completely different name. And because people don't know this occurrence, they are the ones that might be able to move to some of the real native Linux programs. But a lot of them do not have the spit and polish that a Windows or a Mac operating system software usually has. But it's getting better. Every year, the application programs are getting much, much better. So that's number 2. Number 3, you have to be a math whiz to use Linux. I'm not a math whiz, but I've been using Linux off and on for over 2 decades. So it hasn't been challenging my mathematics. You have to build everything from scratch. It used to be that was true. There is a distro, Linux from scratch, where you actually are doing this. And I don't think there are that many people that are actually doing and using it. And occasionally a new piece of software comes out, you hear about it, but the only thing that is available right now is either executables for an operating system that other than the one you are running on. And so there isn't a version for your machine right now, but usually the software source code is. So then you have to learn how to be able to take the source code, download it, compile it, and make it into your own executable, or you have to sit and wait for somebody else to do it for you. There's also in the Linux realm lots of software that is for the terminal. But a lot of people say, hey, wait a minute, that frightens a lot of people? Okay, fine. They make a graphical user interface called a wrapper that wraps around that terminal program, and you have no idea you're running a terminal program. It looks like any other GUI. So that's another area that a lot of people don't understand unless they start researching well in Linux. And you do have to do a fair amount of research to get a lot of the pieces. Let's see, what's the next one? Linux Mint tutorial. Now, I'm only going to show you a tiny bit of this because this thing's about 20 minutes long. And
ready to dive headfirst into the wonderful world of Linux Mint and free software? This 7-part series is going to teach you all you need to know about Linux Mint, starting with part 1, the desktop. So let's dive.
And now, mind you, this will probably be on 21.2 or 21.3. That's okay. If you look over here at the side, there's the one that is playing now. And right below it are the other ones that come after that. As you can see, you could spend about 3 hours, roughly, going through all of these videos as a tutorial for Mint. That's why I'm not showing you much of anything here. I'll leave that to those like Dennis, and if others like Jim Kincaid looks at the video later on, it may help him. Next up, this guy's got a great face. Okay, Linux on Windows, Windows on Linux. This is not for everybody. So again, I'm only going to show you part of it.
Linux on Windows and Windows on Linux. This is WSL, or the Windows Subsystem for Linux. In 2 minutes, I'm going to have 2 flavors of Linux running on your Windows machine. Ubuntu and Kali Linux for the hackers. GUI support, GPU access, shared files between Windows and Linux. You can use Linux commands on Windows and Windows commands on Linux. It's crazy. It's like Linux and Windows became one person. Is it too powerful? Yes, it is. And even if you think you know WSL, everything there is to know about it, I bet you, in this video, you're gonna learn something new. In fact, that's a challenge. If you watch this video and you don't learn anything, I give you permission to leave a mean comment about me. Like, really make it personal. Attack me as a person. I'm giving you permission. Get your coffee ready. Let's go. Okay, before we go crazy, let's talk about what you need. Who can run WSL2? And by the way, this is WSL2, there was a 1, this one is obviously better. For hardware, you'll want a 64-bit processor, and ARM is supported. You'll want a minimum of 4 gigs of RAM, and like anything in IT, any project I've covered, the more RAM you have, the better. You'll probably have the best time with 16 or higher. Now before we move on, if you don't already have it enabled, you'll need to jump into your BIOS and enable virtualization, because WSL2 uses lightweight virtual machines. So reboot your computer, jump into your BIOS, you'll either hit Escape or F2 or F10 or something, it'll tell you. And if you have an Intel processor, look for something called Intel VTX and enable that. If you have AMD, look for AMD V. That will enable virtualization and you'll be all set. WSL doesn't need much, so I hope this includes most people. Let's talk about software now. Of course, you'll want to be running Windows. This is Linux on Windows. But what flavor? You will 100% have the best time if you're running Windows 11. If you're still holding the line at Windows 10, you are supported, but you gotta be at build 19041, almost forgot it, or higher. You can very quickly check that by going to your search bar and typing in WINVER for WinVer, and it should show you right there. Hopefully you see a big Windows 11 there. And of course, there's one more thing you need, coffee. Everything in IT requires coffee.
Yeah, I think he's had a little too much of the coffee. But what he's getting at here, instead of doing a dual boot environment that is normally what Linux users have been using for a long time, and I mean many, many years. Bottom line is WLS is a DOS install basis, and then in the Microsoft Store are about a half a dozen different Linuxes. Mint is not one of them that you can install that goes on top of it, and it gives you the ability to have Windows and Linux running simultaneously on your system. So if you know about your virtual desktops, you could have Windows 11 or even 10 running in Virtual Desktop 1, switch to Virtual Desktop 2, and you can be running WSL with, say, Ubuntu on it, and you just switch back and forth from the desktop you want to do something in, and you've got both worlds in one machine. I'm not going to go further on this, but he will also get into normal virtualization on Linux, and you can install 10 or 11 there. That's a true virtual machine type ideology. Some say, especially with an old version of an operating system like 10 is getting to be, you are much safer running it as a virtual. But there are caveats, and I don't totally believe that it's as secure as some of them claim. There is pretty good kind of protection, but at the same time too, you're sharing your CPU cores, you're sharing your main memory, you are sharing your drive in a virtual environment, and It's best that you also back up each one of your virtual machines independently as though it was data, because sometimes in a virtual machine, something goes kablooey and you've lost it all. Well, if you got a backup, you restore the backup and you're back in business as of the day you did the backup. So the more frequent you make changes, the more frequent you want to do a backup of that virtual machine. I also have, following this one here, an article. Oops, wait a minute. There. Okay, how to access your Linux files in Windows 10 and 11. I found this to be a good article so that you, in a Windows environment, can find your Linux files and be able to manipulate them possibly in Windows, understanding that in a Windows environment, we use extensions. In Linux, we usually do not have extensions. The extensions say this piece of software, this piece of data in the file wants to use a specific program, and it's called a default program for that extension. It may not exist in a Linux file, so you would have to say, I want to open with, by right-clicking on the data file and specifying what program should open that file up. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't work. But generally speaking, this gives you the ability to go back and forth between the OSs with your data files and be able to get things accomplished that each one does better than the other, such as video editing is much better in Windows. It's got a ways to go in Linux. You'll have to trust me on that. There's a lot of people I know right now that do make videos, they edit the videos, etc., and they're still using a Windows machine just to do that one function. So this is something to keep in mind. I'm going to pause there for a moment. Does anybody have anything in the way of questions for what I've covered so far? Hearing nothing, I'll continue on. Let's see. Here's the Linux Mint blog. How to upgrade to a Linux Mint 22. And they step you through some of the steps that are required, and it's not absolutely inclusive. These green lines here are URLs to additional information that you're going to have to go into in each of these categories, and that'll give you more detailed information. But if you do it, take your time, as it says in black and white. Do not panic in black and white, and some additional notes. So you get a warning up here of what you may encounter, but with luck, nothing bad will come up out of that. Okay, how to run Windows applications on Linux. This is a beginner's guide by Foss, and this will give you some idea if you want to try and run a Windows program on Linux. It will help you install, if it's not already there, Wine, and configure it. And you want to also be able to take and do some testing. Do not assume everything works, because that's not the case. There's a lot of software in Windows that'll never run on Linux base unless you're using a paid-for platform called Crossover. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. It does a pretty good job with a fair amount of gaming software, but the higher level you go in gaming software, the less likely you're going to be able to run or be satisfied with how it runs. Which Windows applications are supported. That's a constant change, but they give you a guideline: platinum, gold, silver, bronze, garbage. They'll never run probably on your system. Bronze may run, but it may not give you all the features. You may not be very happy with the way it runs. Silver starts getting into a usability territory, and gold and platinum do a much better job at working. Finding applications in Wine Application Database. They finally made a database of these categories of software that people report in or they themselves have experienced working. And you have to understand, you're using a Windows PC, most likely. That means that it was designed for Windows. And Windows, if you're not really awake about it, goes back about 25 years, near 30 years now, 29 years more accurately. And it covers lots and lots of ancient hardware. They are in 11 starting to drop some of that real old support that might still be in 10. Okay, that's another reason why. That's one of the reasons why some machines cannot move from Windows 10 to 11 unless they run unsupported, and they don't get all the features of a supported 11. I can speak from experience on that. So it is one of these things where you can investigate this database, set up Wine, and try and install these applications. They give you a tutorial how to, and if it doesn't work satisfactorily for you, then you can uninstall it with Wine and try something else. So if you have multiple pieces of Windows software, you can, if you're adventurous enough, you can play with all of them. Some of them may work well enough to keep going, and some of them are going to either not work or work so bad that you'd be totally dissatisfied trying to continue working with them at the present. Like all software, this stuff is updated. So from, I would say, give it another year if it's not running well for you, and try the Wine again that's been updated, and check the database. Maybe it went from bronze to silver, as an example. Now it might be getting into the territory where the Windows software may run well enough for you for what you're doing and asking of that software. If it doesn't, uninstall it, wait another year, and make sure everything's up to date, and try it again. But you're never going to get all Windows software to work. You're just going to have to accept that. You're going to have to do some research to find substitute Linux native applications that are kind of like a clone of that Windows software. It just looks like it wasn't totally finished. It was never made better than what you see, and sometimes that's because people stop developing on it. But you may have something there that is usable for you It's just called something other than what you know in Windows. Okay. Oops. Wrong mouse again. Keep doing that. How to set up Windows 10 and 11 virtual machine on Linux. Now, that other video will get into doing the same thing. This is just a support article that shows you how you can set up virtual machines on a Linux system and have a virtual 10 or 11 running inside of a Linux machine. And using virtual desktops, you can separate the two and switch back and forth between Linux and Windows. If you got enough CPU resources, enough memory, and enough storage, you may be able to have more than one virtual machine running at a time. But because you're sharing resources, you are reducing the amount of horsepower your system has without virtual machines in order to be able to have that virtual machine there to look at something. Maybe you're helping somebody out who's on Windows, and you bring up the virtual machine for the version they're running, and you try and figure out what their problem is, and then give them guidance as to how to correct their problem. So that's something else to keep in mind. How to set up a list environment variable. I was taken back on this one. I have known of it for a while, but I've never bothered with it. This goes all the way back to the DOS days in the 1980s and early 1990s, before Windows 3.0. And even then, for a while, many users also used it, because what you can do is say, I just downloaded a piece of software. It's just an executable. It's not an install type of program. And the problem is, it's in the download folder. And the download folder usually is not in a list of environmental locations to search for an executable that you're trying to run. So if you go into the environmentals, you can add a path to say, check the download folder. And that way, when you say, I type in that program name, it's doing a search of the environmental list until it finds it, or it exhausted all locations and cannot find it, and it will tell you, I can't find this. Otherwise, it'll execute it. So that's something else to keep in mind. It's a level of environment that most of us don't need, but it does come into play when you are trying to organize your system to keep, say, business stuff away from home entertainment and game playing. Because if you are not using the environmental variables, one side may work and the other side may not work as well for everything you want to run. So this is where the environmental variable list comes in. 10 tips and tricks for improving the performance of Linux Mint. I haven't gotten deep into this yet, but I guarantee you I'll be looking at this and some other ones that I've got here. They may have ways of getting a little more performance out of your current systems, because all these OSs they're adding lots of features. Some people classify that as bloatware because it's something they don't want, they're not interested in it, therefore to them it's bloat. If they can remove that, since they don't have any interest and or use for that feature, then they would take that out, and that gives them more storage space and potentially better performance in some instances, because there's less of a expanding operating system in size. Next up, this is a Easy Linux Tips project, and this is speeding up Mint, and it is actually 4 parts. So this one here is just speeding up Mint also in general terms, but this one gets into 50 tips to tweak for Linux Mint Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. So this gives you quite a few things you can look through that might give you more customization, more performance. Some things in any operating system are not always very clear as to how you get them to work. This may help you find out how to do something you've been wanting to do, but you couldn't figure out how to get it set up and working. Now, another one, 21 best things to do after installing Mint. Now, this is for 21.3. Most of this will still be true for 22. There are some things that will be different. So you, and the last one, 21, speed up application launch times with preload, optimization screen real estate, etc., etc. So these are some things that may give you better performance and a styled environment that suits your personality, because that's what customization of your desktop is to give you an environment that kind of represents the way you think, the way you work, the way you like things to look. As an example, on Windows base, most people have icons all over the desktop, and a lot of people consider that clutter. But you only have a certain amount of easy real estate on the taskbar, whether it's down at the bottom or on the upper bar of the window, left or right side, which has even less space usually. So this is a way of maybe custom tailoring things to your liking even more. Another one, Beginner's Guide to Using the Terminal on Mint. I'm not pushing the terminal, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, because there's a lot of videos that you may find or articles you may find where a person that created it will tell you that the majority of the real power in Linux is through the terminal. But it means you have to remember a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't want to remember that much stuff. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, but getting your feet wet so that you have some real experience and use of some of the more frequently used tools in a terminal can be a very good thing. And that includes being able to update your computer. You can update it right from the computer terminal, probably as easy, maybe a little easier than you can through the graphical user interface of the update manager. give it a try. Also, there's some additional cleanup tools that you can run in the terminal that you may or may not get in other cleanup graphical user interfaces. Okay, 5 tweaks to customize the look of your Linux terminal. If you're going to learn the terminal, a lot of people don't like the way the terminal looks. It's dark, usually black. And this gives you the ability to make some customizations of it to add color, to give you emphasis, especially if you ever decide to try and do programming. A lot of the programming languages will have keywords highlighted in different colors to make them stand out and be obvious. I don't really expect too many of you to do that, but a few of you might. Android on Linux Mint with Wayland Droid setup guide. I just came across this. This is one of my other add-ons to what I was going to have tonight. And this is something that a lot of people do like to do on Windows, is if they can run, and Chrome OS too, also run Android applications. It varies in your operating system and the software you have to use as to how well something's going to work. So you're going to get a mixed bag trying this out. But some people that use Android phones, they use your phone application in Windows and marry the two devices together and can use their computer keyboard and display to send text messages, emails, etc. through their phone. So there's value to it. Also, it's for data transfer to and from. If you take a lot of photos with your smartphone camera, this is an easy way to offload them off the phone onto your computer, and then you can start manipulating them, store them somewhere, whatever you want to do with them. But you can also take, maybe you've developed something on your system, desktop or laptop, and you want to transfer it to your phone so that when you go somewhere, you can show someone else what you have developed or created, even though it's a very small screen. But in any case, it's worth at least looking into. And the last one I've got here is how to reinstall Linux Mint without losing your data and settings. Now, if you want to try and update the 22 iOS, make sure you read this first and really understand what it's saying about this, because basically speaking, you have to understand how your system is set up in partitions. Certain ones, like if you have a UEFI or boot partition, that has to be modifiable. Your root directory has to be modifiable. Your home directory, odds are you're going to keep it, but you got to make sure you set the mount point for /home. The swap directory, if you have one, you can leave that one alone, and then it'll go through the update process. This is what under Windows we call an in-place upgrade, and this is a way of doing 22, but it's more laborious because there's so much you have to go through to get the whole thing done, versus if and when they release that regular automatic update application, you start it up, and once in a great while you take a look at the screen, And for the most part, it just runs automatically. And when it's all done, you restart the system and you are now on the new version. And that's it. Anybody got any questions or comments about anything we've done tonight? Well, there are a lot of sticks in the mud. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can find and put out my notes. Now this is cute. I got CCS August Linux. That's from 2023. This one here was a 2 in parentheses. It's 2024. So I'm already starting to run into duplications. All right, now I gotta stop my share. I forgot about that. Stop the share. I gotta bring up the chat. Bring back that screen. Okay. Okay. It uses the W for Word, even though this was made on a Linux system using Abbey Word, because it has RTM format. So you can all download that, and since you got nothing else to do for the next month, at least this will keep you off the streets and out of trouble. One other thing that I want to bring up, I got a notification 2 days ago from our executive assistant about somebody joining, and I was wondering if he was going to show up tonight. He's a author and book writer, and the one he's got is that he's pushing right now is called self-hosting. Basically speaking, it's how to set up a server of your own to host your content that you are interested in, which can be videos, pictures, and you can do a slideshow of your pictures. You can have data files out there, backups, whatever. It's all dependent upon how much storage you put into the device. I'm looking at doing something like that as is. I just don't know when I'll get to it. Part of the problem is getting the drives is going to be the most expensive thing. If you got an old computer laying around, or you buy a used computer like on eBay, etc., your main hardware costs can be kept to a bare minimum. But you are going to have to pop for probably a old SATA 3 SSD that you'll use as a caching. And the other possibility is going to be the actual drives that you're going to put in for storage. And they come in all different sizes, but usually you want NAS or server class type of drives, especially enterprise level. And if you do that, those usually have a very long, solid lifetime. And they may outlive you. Not a joke. So it's something to think about. It's not for everybody. A slight step down from that is building a NAS, which I could do also. A NAS is a network attached storage device. I have lots of computers. Most of you only have 1 or 2 computers. A few of you have a little bit more. Bottom line, if you're using external USB attached drives into a port to do your backups on, you have to go machine. With a NAS, it's sitting on the same network all your computers are sitting on. And all you have to do is say, I want my backup to go to this network drive out on the NAS, and that's where it'll store it. And if you have multiple machines like I do, I would have a folder under a general category of backups, one folder per machine that uniquely identifies each of the machines so that I can keep at least 3 active backups of each machine for 3 consecutive months. When I go to make the new backup, then I will get rid of the oldest version of my backups, still leaving me with 3 backups. Any comments?
Jim?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Could this work at I've got plenty of machines,
Well, so do I.
so I could dedicate 1 or 2 machines to this, but could this work across the internet?
That is a good question. There is a problem, and I will tell you that right now. One problem I know of, okay, and this is for real, with a server in your routers, you have, here's the outside from your ISP, here's the inside of your place network. In between is called a DMZ, and it's demilitarized zone. And that's usually where the server sits, okay? But most of the ISPs don't want to host your server from your house because they don't have control of it, okay? So you have to find a way around that. Now, with a NAS, I know you can do a remote into it using a VPN. You might be able to do that to an in-house server also, I believe, so that the machine has a running VPN on the server or NAS, and then you're out and about somewhere, and you take your smartphone, tablet, laptop, even a desktop that's portable enough, and you use your VPN client to go into your VPN server in your home or business, whichever it is. And you can access what's there as a file. I don't know that it will work allowing you to execute programs and be able to see the screen and what it's doing and manipulate things as though you were sitting in front of that machine. I can't answer all the questions because I haven't done enough research yet.
Okay, Bill Ziegler, going way, way back, used to run something where he could go into his clients' machines.
Yes, that's doing a remote connections. It's a remote desktop, usually under Linux in particular, but you can do it under Windows and Mac, is an SSH into that device because it works like a VPN does. So that's another route too. So there are multiple ways around some of this stuff. This guy's book, Self-Hosting, sounds like it will help you understand and set up a complete server. Then you can add other features.
Because what I've got is I've got the T-Mobile hotspot now, both at the house and at the shop. So basically, I got a cell phone connection on both sides that's permanent.
That's correct.
And the speeds are 5G or better. So I'm not looking at super slow speeds.
Right. I know
I can
exactly what
stream.
you're talking about. There are other people that are part of CCS that are using basically the same service for the same reasons.
One is cost. It's only costing me $40 a unit.
Well, for this person, he lives in a condo. One person that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, and the condo has its own service. So this is his way of having his own service and not rely upon the condo's service.
Yeah.
So he's got more control. But and he does it by just tethering his computers to his smartphone to get.
I tried that for one day, and I did a download, and I went through my whole month worth of data
Wow,
for one update.
man, I don't know what your limitations are. You have to check with them as to how much the cap is on your service. That's the key. Data caps exist on lots of services, and you're going through cell service, and they don't want you pissing off all the other cell users that are trying to use the same tower.
But they don't care when you use the cell service connection, which is what that hotspot is.
I know what it is. I've used hotspots before.
No, not the hotspot on the phone.
No, I know, but it's the same
standalone hotspot.
It's
basically
the same concept. It's the same concept.
Yeah. They don't care at that.
But they
there's no data limitation.
You've got most of the carriers have data cap limitations for a month, and then they start throttling your connection down for whatever remains of the month until the new month is activated.
They don't do it on these devices.
Well, I don't know how you used up all your space. No,
I was connected to my Apple phone the first time I went over there.
Okay.
Using the Apple phone for a hotspot, same carrier.
Right. Well, like I say, this varies carrier to carrier. You're not going to get a one set limit across the board. That's not even realistic.
Correct.
All right. Anybody got anything else?
Well, yes.
No. Mine's a shorter answer. Therefore, I win.
Okay, I brought up the on my Linux. I mean, I'm talking to you now on the Chromebook, but on my Linux machine, I brought up the Gmail for our meeting, and I have the link for our meeting. And I want to try to get Zoom going for the first time on my Linux box. So when I click on the link, I'm not sure what a best practice is. It seems to be giving me two choices.
Yeah, it says
the first one's
or cancel.
It
says
the first
or cancel at the top.
Gee,
I wonder what those two options give you.
It says at the top one says open Zoom workplace ? And it says, do I want to allow US 02web.zoom.us to open links of this type in the future? Or on the bottom of the screen, click open on the dialog shown by your browser about down here, launch meeting.
Yeah, but do you
do I want to open Zoom workplace or get rid of that and do launch meeting?
Hang loose. Go to the top where it says open and click it. Let's see if it smokes your machine.
Okay. Okay, I click join. And maybe it's going to ask you if I can get into the meeting.
No. I don't know why you didn't do this for the meeting to begin with tonight. You're not playing with trying to get human beings from Earth here to the moon or Mars and back alive. Like those people that went up in the Boeing satellite, supposedly for 1 or 2 weeks' time, and they'll be lucky if they get back on a SpaceX capsule in late February.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise for them.
Oh, I guarantee that. But Boeing, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep going because they've had such massive overruns on their space capsule. It's not funny. And I don't know how they're going to cost justify the whole thing, spending a hell of a lot more. I think they're going to try and get unmanned their space capsule back from the space station down to Earth so they can examine as much of the problems that occurred to see what they have to do to correct those problems in the future. If they have,
they're gonna have to pay for another unmanned launch after they get it back, if they get it back in one piece. Just test all the stuff.
Well, wait a minute now, Peter. You're partly right and you're partly wrong. Because all they're getting back, if they are successful, is the capsule itself. Not
correct.
The main part behind the capsule right now that has got the fuel to get that capsule back into an Earth orbit and then be able to jettison that and get the capsule back. So they cannot see, they have to go by what their people are telling them and maybe showing them through like a camera phone video of some of these problems that they can do, assuming they are doing some spacewalks to be able to go outside and take off panels to check some things out and show pictures and video. I don't think they're doing that. And those spacesuits that they have to be accommodated in the SpaceX capsule that also has to make room for them so they can come back.
Oh, okay. So based on their press conference yesterday, which is the latest press conference, they are going to bring them back, but they're going to be up there for about 6 months. They're going to bring back the capsule back unmanned, but they got to reflash all the software on it. And they've got to get that off by the 20th, I think the 15th of September. They got to get it off the station for the replacement SpaceX unit to come up. SpaceX is going to come up minus two astronauts and with SpaceX suits for Sonny and the other guy.
Well,
so they're not going to use the Boeing suits in the SpaceX capsule at all. They're going to use SpaceX suits.
Well,
they're going to bring up.
See, the thing is, they were saying that it would be late February before they can achieve that.
Yeah. 6 months. They're going to be up there at least 6 months.
6 more months on top of the several months they've been up there already.
Right. They're going to be up there almost 9 months.
Yeah.
Which is going to not quite do a record because they've had astronauts up there for a full year. But Sonny's getting a little long in the tooth on age.
You think?
I'm being sort of nice. And if they lose her, Boeing is going to be dead.
Think of this like a vacation. You packed your bags and you traveled to wherever the heck you were planning on going, and you only brought enough of anything and everything you might need for a 2-week period, and it may be 9 months before you get home.
As long as my pay was still coming, as long as my pay was still coming direct deposit, I could live with that, I think.
Well, yes and no.
But it's
where are you going to spend it
like
on the International Space Station?
I'll save a lot of money.
Well, you still have
it's
your,
more it's more
recurring
like
bills.
they went up with an 8. It's closer to going on a boat ride for an 8-day tour, like on the Minnow.
A 3-hour tour.
They didn't have enough because they only had their day packs because they had to bring some other stuff up there. So they're gonna, and there's barely enough up there right now until the Dragon gets up there, because they're going to fill the other 2 seats with supplies and the suits. So it's sort of like you take a day trip to Moscow and you got some smoke in your pocket, and all of a sudden you're in for a 10-year gulag trip.
Or like the Keiko Islands, and you have some ammunition that you didn't take
Right,
out.
right.
You might
Pete,
be there for 12 years.
Well, Pete, it's been done before by Gilligan, the skipper, Ginger, Marianne.
All right. Unless there's something else, Nat, we'll call it quits for the night and see about what the heck I can come up with next month.
I have one quick question.
Not allowed.
Sorry.
Dennis used up all your time.
First presentation on installing the new Mint 22 talked about using something called Wilma. I'm not familiar with it.
Wilma's just the code name for the for 22.
Yeah, that every
okay.
distro has a code name.
Okay.
Whether it's Linux, Windows, or macOS. So
I just installed a previous version of Mint on a laptop using Vintoy. Anybody familiar with Vintoy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use it.
Love it. Works good.
It's still a case where unless you're blowing away what you have after you back up your data and knowing all your installed applications and programs, you would blow it away. You would put all your programs and apps back on, put your copy of the data back on, you're in business. If otherwise, you have to learn and how to do an in-place type of an update, which I do on Windows to repair them. I've done it on Linux a lot of times for that. Earl McCoy left, but he, man, I forget how many days and hours I spent with him, and he thought he knew what he was doing, and he found out he was his own worst enemy. I ain't joking, because I had to straighten it out. Anyway, so
a clean install, so I don't have to worry about recovering anything.
Well, it's just a case where knowing how to do an in-place helps you if you start using the Linux for production work in place of Windows. Okay, so now something's gone kablooey. If you've got it partitioned with the root and the home directory as the minimum, you can blow away the root, keep the home directory intact, and you're back up in less time. Not a lot less time, but less time. And all your stuff is there. But
yeah, I have done in-place upgrades, and the things I back up are the home partition, the synaptic little checklist that it can generate of what you've got installed, and markings as to things, notes as to things that I got from elsewhere and how I installed them. That does not take care of settings or anything like that.
Right. Now, the other thing that you have, and what he's talking about there, if you customize your desktop, the way things look and work, those settings are in the root directory quite often, but some of them are in the home directory too. But in either case, you may lose some of your settings and have to go through that process again. But there are people, especially under Windows, that every 6 months or every year they do a clean install, and that's to get rid of the garbage they don't know how to get rid of. I've given you the tools before and early tonight how to clean out a lot of the garbage that accumulates over time that reduces the need for a clean install.
Yeah, but with Windows 7 upward, it's the Win side by side and the Syswell 64 node that accumulate huge amounts of stuff, and they're really devilishly difficult and dangerous to try to clean.
I've been doing the cleaning, especially for the side by side, with absolutely no problem ever. And I'm not joking.
Are there specific tools that you use?
Built right into Windows.
Alrighty then.
Not joking.
Maybe one day you'll make a little topic of that.
Nah,
for one of our other meetings.
About that too. I second that.
As a tech, that's my thing. It's honestly not hard, to be frank. Now, going back as far as 7, you may not get all the features, because they that was the early stages of some of these tools, and they've been adding function and feature since then. But let's see here. Let me bring up the terminal. Boy, this thing just insists on being in the way. Okay, I'm going to expand that window and get some zoom in.
Oh yeah, I get what you got.
Okay.
I see these tools, and I have seen them, but not ever really had the guts to use them.
Oh, I didn't have any real issues. Oops. That's what you stick in a terminal.
Yeah, cleanup image. Yeah, it's that cleanup image thing.
It's the last part that does the side-by-side cleanup.
Right. Okay. Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah, it isn't hard. Now, if you start having problems, such as you're running an SFC /scan now and find corruption, sometimes it's best to use the DISM command also, but there you change just the last part here to restore health. And that
that's under cleanup image. Okay.
It's you don't worry about the cleanup image. That's just gets certain things accomplished as a setup. It's the last command that does the actual work.
Okay, so that's your DISM online restore health.
Yep. And
yeah, that's the key to getting that done.
And for oops, again, doggone multiples. To find out if you've got corruption, and I do this almost monthly after the Windows update, SFC /scan now. I'm not going to run it here because this is Linux, not Windows.
Yeah. It's a Windows thing.
And this is strictly a Windows. And sometimes it will tell you there's corruption it cannot fix. You got to use a DISM with restore health to correct that. There are some times where it says, I found some corruption, but I was successful in repairing it. Once, fine. Second time, I'm doing the DISM restore health because some of that may be reoccurring problems, and I want to try and get rid of those. And then you have a couple other options. I don't bother with them. I either am doing a repair health, I'm taking care of side by side. The nodes I didn't get into, so I haven't played with that one.
Okay.
But all these tools are under Systems 32, which is very large, and not everything there is an executable. Most of it is support DLLs and other data type files. But anything that's got a .msc, a .cpl, and .exe will all execute. They're all tools. This is what I wanted to show, making a desktop icon in Windows at the TNT SIG last month. And I couldn't because we couldn't share the desktop. And it's easy to do. It's just, it's a little tedious. So what I do is I make a copy of them onto a thumb drive. And that way, when I want it on another system, I just copy what I got on the thumb drive onto the standard desktop. And these are tools that require administrative level. And I don't want to always get out of standard to go into administrator, do some of these tasks, exit out of that, and go back into the standard user to continue my work. So these are just shortcuts with an administrative privilege that you have to provide the password of the administrator on, and they will execute right in the standard user correctly. The one for device management will work in standard without administrative privilege to give you a view only of what's out there. You cannot make any changes. You got to have the administrator level okay to be able to do that in a standard user account. And disk management mandatory. You got to have it. And there's an old cleanup utility that is now incorporated inside of PC Manager that they came out earlier this year with. I've mentioned before in Windows groups. And one other one that I occasionally run is called WinSock. WinSock is a buffer cache of your internet, and sometimes that gets hosed up, and the WinSock can help clean that out too. And so far, none of these require any parameters beyond the command. There are others that you can, in the shortcut, add parameters to if needed to get something more specific accomplished right off the bat. But making desktop shortcuts is a piece of cake. It's just tedious. And it's tedious because of the way you have to get to everything it needs. There are multiple ways of doing it, and the slowest way is the most tedious. There are other ways of achieving it, but you have to be careful because sometimes it doesn't give you the full path to where that command is located. And in that case, you got to use the laborious way to get that shortcut created.
Okay, well, that's how to do things about Win side by side.
Like I said, on DISM, Restore Health, I'm pretty positive does not exist. I am not even sure side by side of the store components exists, because it's a early, shall we say, release. So you start getting some of these features in 8, 10, and of course 11.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, in Linux, we don't have all this garbage. We have other ways of accumulating garbage.
Yeah, but I mean, basically speaking, most people just fail to really take the time to find out what's in their system that may benefit them, and may be easier way of doing something than what they think they know, or they don't know any way of doing it, such as cleaning out the side-by-side.
Yeah. Okay, well, that may be helpful.
Well, this is cheating. This is not Windows. This is Linux.
I know.
All right.
You kind of surprised me when you talk about the people that would reinstall the operating system, because you lose everything on that. You know, that's just such a hard way of doing it. I just wonder, what are they doing with their computer that they would consider this, you know?
It's the accumulation. It's the accumulation of garbage.
Yes, and it's a combination of things that the system doesn't clean out. It's not knowing enough tools to clean out some of that, if not most of that garbage. That's why I always use more than one cleanup program. I use multiple, because they all find a little something the others didn't find. And
yeah, by the way, how we got onto that Win side by side is we were talking about clean install versus in-place upgrade in Linux. And in Linux, there's not as much of an excuse for not doing a clean install, because you don't have a lot of software licenses to deal with. You have usually a single repo where you got most of your software, so a single list that can be exported and imported. And the settings usually that most people do are fairly simple compared with what people will do with Windows.
Yeah, and in Windows, you have that side-by-side. That's a backup. In case something goes wrong, you may be able to roll back something, and it uses what it says was now obsolete. Okay.
Yeah. And what you can do in Linux is you can set up the same sort of thing with TimeShift and various others.
Yes. TimeShift is another one that I have been looking at to try and see if I can. Somebody set up a TimeShift. They told it to store everything in the root directory, and then they wanted to do an update, and it says I'm out of space. What the heck do I do? What went wrong? Well, they made two mistakes. Number one, they didn't know the tools to clean out the garbage, and number two, you never ever put TimeShift or similar type software into the root directory. I wouldn't even put it in the home directory. And
I wouldn't put it on the same drive.
Yes. Yeah. That's the third thing. I wouldn't put it on the same drive. It would be a separate drive, preferably external, so that you can plug it in, do what you're supposed to do with TimeShift, and unplug it. But the confusion gets into setting it up. There's some very simple snapshots that are like Windows restore points, all the way up to a full backup with what's called incremental type backups of changes that occur since the last full backup. And all that's got to be restored properly to make your system whole again.
You also need to tell it to delete old files after so many times.
Right.
Well,
because otherwise it will fill your drive.
yeah, but I mean, everybody basically thinks of everything that they create as a data file of some kind on their system will take a very little space, and it accumulates over year after year after year after year, and it gets ridiculous. Download folder can have the same thing happen as documents. To some extent, this can be true of photos and videos as well. So you have to probably at least once a year go through those folders and say, this is something I'm never going to look at again, and get rid of it. Or if you want to, back it up first, then get rid of it.
But you think of it as TimeShift is going to copy everything you tell it to copy onto the drive, and it will continue. And the next time it does it, it will do it again.
You stop. That's what I'm saying. TimeShift has multiple setups, from a very, very small setup of a restore point. So you have multiple restore points in case something goes wrong. And that's just like Windows, to all the way to a full backup with incremental backups.
Correct.
You got lots of options there. This isn't a simple tool.
I know, because I use it. But you got to tell it in that setup that you only want it to.
That's what's confusing to most people, and if they have an experience like this one guy did, they're going to swear off of it and say, forget TimeShift. And all I'm saying is they don't know enough about TimeShift to really set it up correctly for their use.
You need to watch some YouTube videos on it before you start it.
Oh, you got more than just the YouTube channel, so you got to go through some articles too. There's a lot of good guides.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, I'm so confused. I just took a look at my repository. They have TimeShift, and I looked at what it was saying about it, and they're saying it's not a backup, that it protects system files.
No, it's a combination tool, and the simplest version is a restore point type operation like Windows, and you can have an entire full backup image, and then it starts making incremental backups of everything that changes or is created. That's the way the tool really works. But most people probably would not use TimeShift as a full-blown backup methodology, but they might want to use it for the simple, short snapshots, so that if they do something and something goes wrong, they restore that snapshot, and presumably the problem that arose is all gone.
Yeah, TimeShift is probably best used by most users as sort of like a system restore or a restore point set.
Right.
And those you don't keep very many of them.
Right.
If you want to do full backups, they're simpler and easier to use tools.
Yeah, much better tools. They'll go faster as well. Because I don't recall that TimeShift, because I did check it out on an external drive. As I recall, I don't think there was any compression. I think it's like a copy.
I think it's like a DD copy, which could use compression, but you would have to configure it to do so.
Well, that may be true, but bottom line is, if you don't know about DD utility and compression options and that, it ain't going to happen.
That's right. And whereas the other tools just automatically compress, and they are much faster.
Yes. Oh, that reminds me, Bob, I asked you about Foxclone. Did you happen to have time to look into that?
I have not actually looked into it or played with it, but it's on my list of things that I might try if I get some time sometime.
Yeah, well, welcome to the club on the latter part of that.
Right now, I am busily replacing Ubuntu with LMDE.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end this since it's already 9:37.
We got a bonus.
Yeah, right. You got 2 bonuses at least, if not 3. All right. I'll see you guys next month.
I'm going to say aloha from the land between the two hurricanes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with that.